Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Living Life at Life You. I am your host, Dr. Veronica Garcia, and today I am joined by two amazing women from our athletics department, Jayme Pendergast as well as Ashley Flavin. I apologize, I wanted to make sure I say your name correctly.
It's Flavin, but that's okay.
Flavin. Okay, I apologize for that. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
How are you ladies doing?
Doing great.
We're great. Thanks for having us.
We're at the end of the quarter, so we're feeling chill.
We're getting
Not
there.
really.
We're getting there.
Not yet.
We're getting there. Yeah.
So talk to me about, I want to dive into athletics because I think it's such a huge piece that sets Life University apart. As a former athlete and also as an alumni at Life University, what are three ways that athletes, when they're looking for places to go, for places to belong, what are three ways that you feel like Life University opens their doors and allows athletes to just feel belonged and feel like they should be here?
Yeah. And, I'm so glad that they added belonging to a lot of these DEI initiatives because I really think it comes down to that.
Mm-hmm.
You could be super diverse, but if they don't feel like they belong, then you're not checking those boxes. And so, for us, I mean, from my perspective, and I know Ashley has a different perspective in her role, but representation matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, having a diverse staff, and not just having a diverse staff, but having them open and vulnerable to talking about their different identities is so important because that commentary and being open and vulnerable about the different areas that you identify with, anything from, gender and religion and ethnicity, all over the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk about them, little things like putting that sort of information in our staff bios, just having an open environment, all of a sudden these student athletes feel safe, they feel welcome, they feel like they can talk about it. And I think it opens up the lines of communication and they can find people that they can identify with.
Yeah.
What's your experience been like with that?
I think the communication piece, like Jayme's saying, is so big, and it's us being able to tell our stories, but asking questions and listening and actively finding out what the student athletes need. We have 3 Orthodox Muslim athletes on our team, the McBride sisters, and they didn't think they would be able to wrestle in college because there was no uniform that they could wear because they won't wear a singlet. And so, talking with Jayme, talking with the NAIA, there were other coaches that were also throughout the country that thought this was very important. Yeah. And just finding a way for them to belong. Hey, ladies, what do you feel comfortable wearing? Is this okay? Is this okay? And just, just actively finding out what their needs are. I think the communication piece is really the biggest piece to start. And, like Jayme saying, how do they belong? Not just, oh, you're here and checking a box, but how does it make them feel like home? How do they feel respected and valued and cherished, in this spot? And I think just finding out their needs is really important there.
That's beautiful. And it's beautiful that the university kind of spearheads into that belonging, into having those hard conversations that are just a lot about vulnerability. They don't have to be hard. Mm-hmm. They just have to be vulnerable and open and true and real and like no walls, no judgment. It's just a set of openness. So thank you, ladies, for allowing for those conversations to happen, which brings me into another question. How would you say that, what are some of those challenges that our athletes or athletes in general, maybe in just collegiate athletes, challenges that they experience, and how does the university particularly support them in those areas?
Well, one timely example is, we're fortunate enough to our Life University Director of Counseling, Vincent Hinton. He does a lot of time with our student athletes, and we're really grateful for his support. He comes up to our athletic spaces and makes himself available to our student athletes for walk-in appointments. And I just had him at our staff meeting last week, and he talked about, he generalized a lot of the feelings of our student athletes and what they come to him for. And, and it was really important for, I think, us to hear as a staff that we would be naive to think that their experience is all about their athletic performance or even what they experience in the classroom. This is a unique, to their lifetime, a unique experience to them. This is their college years. And it boils down to identity from the perspective of they're coming from high school, their identity was an athlete. Maybe that has changed a bit coming into the college scene, maybe a more competitive environment with different people. How their relationship with their coach plays into that, how, unmet expectations on either end and how that filters into how they feel like they belong in their role on the team. And so, having someone like Vincent talk through that with a student athlete and then, talk to us as a staff on, hey, we really need to identify that the student athlete, the value of the student athlete goes far beyond their GPA, the minutes that they're playing, things like that. And I think the university does a good job at trying to highlight all the different areas that students can be valued. And then we hope that they start seeing pride in that. And I know you talk about social media. What are your thoughts?
The student athletes, whether it's life or anywhere, have all these expectations on them. And some of them make sense, right? Like you have academic expectations, you have a performance expectation when it comes to the sport, but then you have these social media expectations, these stereotypes. You can't be feminine and be in a combat sport, or you have to be feminine if you're in this other sport, or to the McBride sisters, you can't wrestle covered, or you have to do this. And all of these outside voices, when really it's okay to just be true to themselves and, focus on their goal. And it's okay if you, want to wear your hair a certain way or want to wear a hijab or identify one way or don't. Any of that is okay. And I think the university does a very good job of accepting everyone for who they are and giving them a place that they can thrive. I know our student life has a lot of different clubs that I think are very good for the students to find people that are like them.
Yes.
And then, our team specifically, but I mean, walking around looking at the other teams are very good about embracing each athlete for who they are as a person. Like once you're on a team, you're kind of part of this little tiny mini family, like this little, micro environment. And then then what matters to me now matters to Jayme if for no other reason than Jayme cares about me. And then how that, instead of these expectations and this pressure from social media of, oh, you have to be this way. It's this buildup of, oh, you can be whoever you are. So it's a different direction that things come in.
That's beautiful. That's definitely kind of hits home to an extent, because I was a student athlete back home in the college that I was, Giant College, and I was in 2 different sports, which means that I had my science degree as well as I was doing recreational sports as a minor as well, which means that I was kind of like everywhere at the same time, but at the same time, I felt like I didn't really belong, to the point where when I transferred to this university, I chose to leave my identity as an athlete back home, because I was like, I don't think I can go to a whole different country and have to adapt to that, but also have to adapt to being an athlete. So I chose that. But now knowing that that's an opportunity for students, it's more of that beautiful conversation of like, just explore, even if you feel like you belong, which it sounds to me like you're doing, bending over backwards to making sure people understand, hey, you can be you at the end of the day, whatever that means. And we have the resources to help you. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, I think it really helps. I was talking with an international student athlete, and with Life University having such a robust international population, I was talking with her about what are the burdens of learning a new language on top of new country and college athlete and all that. And what she said was really profound. And she was like, actually having a group of friends all being international, because she lives over in the Commons and a heavy undergrad population over there. A lot of our student athletes are international. She said being over there in that environment, the way that space is designed forces you to get in those common spaces and interact. She said that she picked up on the language so much faster because she had 8, 10, 15 other student athletes trying to learn English, and it gave her permission to mess up.
Yeah.
She was around other international students where English wasn't their first language. And she was like, it was actually really enlightening because we could all talk about how weird this English language was together, and they would call each other out if they messed up because they weren't afraid to. And
Right.
it was really enlightening for me to hear that about how important that was to her development. And I haven't forgotten that. And it just shows like that, that representation matters, that it's important to everybody's growth and facilitation of if people similar to your experience are going through the same thing.
Yeah. And I think to your point though, I appreciate that you're like, thanking us and saying we're bending over backwards. It really isn't that hard to be inclusive. You just have to be intentional, and you have to care about another human being, right? Like a bunch of students that all get together and are talking about the English language being different. That's not a hard thing. It's pretty easy for us to facilitate, right? How do we find a time? Or, hey, we don't share a religion. Would you like to come to this Christmas party? No. Okay, that's fine. But we would love to have you if you want, but you don't have to be here. But how can we support you instead? Like like everyone, when they talk about diversity and inclusion, it's like, oh, this is so difficult. It's like reinventing the wheel, right? But it's really just treating someone as a human and treating them how you would want to be treated. Like find out what they care about and then care about it with them. It's really not that difficult.
That's beautiful. And thank you so much for clarifying that. Absolutely. And with that, I would love to point out something, is that this room right now is filled with women, and I love that the university has gone above and beyond to highlight the power of women. And maybe I love that the world is changing into what it is now, into what this room is now, but not only allowing for women in power to come in, but also become leaders. And talk to me a little bit about your experience through that, because having you here already says a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, the university definitely, I don't think about being a woman in this position when I'm on this campus. It's not until I go off the campus. And I'm sure you know that.
Yes, 100%.
So we feel that. And so I think that speaks to the environment that Life University's provided. But in similar to Ashley's comment about hiring females and promoting them into leadership roles, like it's really, to me, not anything crazy or new. It's just these really small intentional things. And, 3 things that I've done that cost zero money, hardly any time, are just, if I'm at a wrestling tournament, I hope Ashley coaches here forever, but like I am actively looking at other female head coaches, other female assistants. Like I am looking for potentially that next hire.
Yeah.
Or if I'm in a room with, let's say there's, a conference coach who's a female, I might have a male coach. I might ask her like, hey, do you have any good like up and coming, females that you want to, it's just having, I think just being open to looking. I think sometimes I hear people say, well, I didn't have any female candidates, but like, were you looking? You can't passively just accept. But even, I trust Ashley's judgment immensely. And I ask her like, hey, what do you think of so-and-so?
Yeah.
I know which coaches she works with that she thinks has integrity and works real hard and can do the job. And I take notes, and I know who she doesn't think has integrity. So for me as an AD, taking notes is really important. And I think being on the lookout for women who can elevate is just so important, but so easy. Yeah. And I'm just not sure if the antennas are up enough to be able to pursue women when that opening comes.
Yeah. That's definitely a call for action for our listeners and for myself and for the people, whether you are in the athletics division department outside in the world, but pretty much everywhere else, right? It is a beautiful, I guess, movement, but it's not really a movement. It's just reality. Yep. Yeah. It's just the everyday living.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I mean, for women in sport, we hear it all the time, yes. Right? About when like every time there's a woman who has a first, it's, oh, she's the first woman to do this, or she was the first woman to do that. And it's like, oh, okay, that's great. This past year, I was the first woman to win a college national title with my team. And I was like, okay, that's great. Thank you. But we don't want to be the last.
Right.
And that's what's so important. Growing up, I didn't have any female head coaches in wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
It was only like the 5th or 6th woman to be hired as a female, as a head coach of a college program. So good job, Jayme. And then there's still probably less than 20 of us with over 100 women's wrestling programs in college.
Wow.
And so back to Jayme's representation, I mean, now my athletes can see that this job is a possibility, right?
Mm.
Or even beyond me, there aren't as many female athletic directors as we would like.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes Jayme's the only woman in the room. And so that also is its own ball of wax to have to fight through. But then for our athletes to see, hey, we have these females that are in these not just, oh, I'm a volunteer, I'm an assistant coach, a head coaching position, or female in an administrative position, and be able to look up to those people and say, hey, I'd like to do that. And then to talk to them as role models. Oh, well, how do you feel about this? Because often in high school, I mean, I was the only girl on the boys team. There were lots of girls, so the only girl on the boys team.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jayme has a very stark understanding of what that looks like, being the only woman in the room. But that's the same in all kinds of different like things, right? Like science, women are underrepresented. There's a lot of places where women are underrepresented. And so I think it's important just to get representation and to be able to use us as role models for the youth.
I love that. And to wrap up, unfortunately, I wish this could be a 3-hour conversation with how it's going. But to wrap up, what are some, advice that you would give to, let's change it up a little bit. Jayme, what would be an advice that you would give your 8-year-old self as she's entering into whatever athletics or whatever it is that she thought she was going to do?
Oh, well, everything I thought I was going to do when I was 8 never came true. So that's a great question. But I would just say, and this is what I tell my 9-year-old now, just say yes. Like, if an opportunity presents itself, even though it wasn't in your plan, just say yes, because you don't understand how each yes gets you to that next decision. And, I think it's common, especially for women, to feel like, well, I have to be set up for success because I think there's a little bit more fear if you're not successful in a leadership role when you're a woman. And so I would say just say yes and see what happens. And I was lucky that I kind of took that mentality, and that's why I get to do this wonderful job today.
That's awesome. Ashley, same question. What would be your advice?
It's a curveball. I was like, as Jayme was talking, I was trying to listen to you, but then also trying to like go back and like, oh, where was I at 8 years old? So other people's expectations of you are not your ceiling. No one really expected me to go to college. That's just not something anyone in my family did. And so, whatever the expectations that are being put on you, you are capable of so much more. So don't let what somebody says your ceiling is be your ceiling. Like make your own limits and then go past them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me today. How can people get in contact with you? How can people reach you if they're interested in any of the athletic piece of the university, but just only to just have a conversation?
I think the best way to follow up on LifeU Athletics and all the wonderful things our student athletes and coaches and administration is doing is LifeU Athletics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and but most importantly, come to a game. That would be great.
Yeah.
I'm at probably 95% of them. Would love to meet anybody that wants to know more about that Life University.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Come to a game. Don't talk to me during a match, though,
No.
please. I'll
field the questions.
Hang out with Jayme during all women's wrestling matches, but I mean, same thing. And all of our social media is LifeU WWR, and then mine is Ash Sword Flavin or some sort of variation, but you can find me through LifeU WWR. So social media is the best way.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for
Thanks,
coming in here, for having a little bit of time within your busy end of the quarter week. And thank you guys for joining us one more time. We hope to see you very soon on our next episode. Stay in touch. Make sure you hit follow and subscribe and leave us a review. Let us know what you think. Let us know who else you want to listen to from this podcast. Have a beautiful day. Have a nice one, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.